how, Val, do you know if you're an author, new or experienced? Because I do developmental edits for experienced authors as well. How do you know you need the developmental edit? And developmental edit is defined as story level work.
Hello, writers and crafters. I'm Valerie Isan,
And I'm Eric Mertz.
and this is episode 167 of the podcast. It is October 16th, 2024, as we are recording this. Today, we're talking about hiring an editor and what your book should look like when you get to that stage. We want to thank all of our existing patrons for believing in our work offline and here on the podcast. You can become a patron of the arts at patreon.com/Valerie Isan and patreon.com/Strange Air Stories. All right, author updates and announcements. You want to go first?
Sure, yeah. I just released the print version of The Accidental Stranger. So if you like the print book versus the ebook, you can go to Amazon.com, Accidental Stranger. That is the first two books of the Black Spring saga. It's um, $15. Come by and check it out.
Nice.
Um, yeah, yeah, kind of excited. I made it a personal like commitment to going into next year, just kind of already looking at marketing strategies. Just like I just need to be out and about with books in hand at readings and at events and things. And I think I talk well. I talk
Mm-hmm.
good. Um, I'm good with the public, so I might as well use that. So yeah, print books are going to be a thing for me. So if you want to go out there and check it out, I'm going to also, start just kind of, you know, showing up at places. So if you see me, you can get one there and save on shipping too. So
So I want to just back up really quick
sure.
and maybe you can do some math for me. When did you first publish your first book? What year? That was
Um,
2015,
I
2016.
was experimenting with Amazon in 2016, 17.
Okay.
I was putting out short reads. And they're all sort of buried on yeah, it took me 3 or 4 years of just like figuring out how it works and what I like to do and where my series was going and all that. So yeah, I'd say 2017. I'm not going to go look. I'm not going to cheat. I'm just going to try to answer from memory.
No, I
2017.
wanted to like point out to listeners that are just beginning that there are a lot of ways to start your career as a writer. And this is 2024 and you're putting out your very first print book.
Oh no, this isn't the
No?
first print. It's not the first print book, but this is the first print book that I did all of the things. Like I went in and I got the author proof. I went through and marked it up. I made sure, like I put a lot of effort into making sure the book laid out correctly. I made sure that it was like properly like laid out, like there's like a book one and then there's like the novella that's the prequel. Like I put those things in order. I did all the back matter because it's different back matter for a
Hmm.
print than it is
Yeah.
for an ebook. You have to do it a little differently. I went and just carefully did all that.
Hmm.
Before I was just like print version, boom, like I wasn't putting any like I did wasn't putting the forethought into like I'm going to walk around with these books in a box and I'm going to sell these to people and I want them to come back at the next event.
Hmm.
So, yeah, I mean you can do the print book pretty fast, but it's just a different
It's a different file.
it's a huge difference. Yeah. It
Okay.
actually took me, I did a little math in my head when we'll move on at this, but it took me like 4 hours to like properly lay out the book, move things around, really make it look like the best print book on my shelf. I walked over to my shelf. I grabbed one. I said, I like this. I like this. I like this. How do I do it? And I had to learn how to use vellum
I
in
was
a
going to say,
way.
did you use vellum?
I did, but
Vellum is awesome.
I didn't know you could customize the things in such a way for print. I
Yeah.
didn't know you could bold the title at the top and italicize it. I didn't know all that because I didn't
Hmm.
take the time. So I'm going to start going back and doing that with all the books, and I'm going to make far better print editions. And then, yeah, this
Oh,
is just going to be
cool.
a part. Yeah, you're going to see me at a table. The next time it's sunny, listeners, you're going to see me at a table and I'm going to have books out, and I'm going to talk your ear off until you buy one. Promise.
Awesome.
What's your update? What do you got? What do you
Well, I
have?
met my client deadline. So yay, pat on the back for me. I had to work on a
Bingo.
Saturday morning, but I squeezed it all in. I also squeezed in some self-care. I worked an extra shift at the bookstore. I did a lot of social time with my with different various friends, various days with my son. I think I'm like in catching up energy. I feel like
Yeah.
I was gone. I was overseas. Went to the writing conference in Alaska, and I just feel like I've kind of dropped the ball on socializing lately. So I feel like I had to pick up those pieces. I I signed up for a 14-day trial for this thing called ClassPass. Do you know about this?
Do not. I would have learned about it from you. So you're my class connection. Yeah. Yeah. In more
So
ways than one, you're my class
I'm
connection.
classy. Ooh.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I've recommitted to health and wellness, and for the rest of the year, my personal goals are all around that, becoming more fit and healthy. And so I have a gym membership, I have a yoga studio membership. I don't really go to either. I do yoga like once a week, but not in the last month because I've been traveling so much. So I really feel like I'm not exercising at all, even though I've got all of this infrastructure to do it. I even have friends that are personal trainers. Like, come on. Why am
Yeah.
I not at the gym? So I heard about ClassPass, and it is a membership that you buy credits, and you can do you can buy as many credits as you want per month. And then this app has, it's like a collection of all the gyms, and there's even like salons and stuff that are on here too, but all these studios and gyms that you can reserve a class for using the credits that you have purchased. So it's just another way to like buy into a class, and I don't have to like commit to a gym. I signed up for a dance class. I'm going to go to a Pilates class today. I'm trying all of these different kinds of movement in the hopes of finding the thing that really resonates with me and that makes me really want to go and, exercise.
That's cool.
So that starts today. I'm going to go
Love
to the
that.
Pilates class today. And so I've signed up for almost every day. I have signed up for something for the next 14 days, which I'm really excited about, but also kind of dreading it, because
Yeah.
I think it's going to hurt a lot, if I'm doing
Sure.
something every day for 14 days. I hope I don't like injure myself, but not
Yeah.
going to put that energy into the universe there. So
Don't do it.
anyway,
Don't do it.
that's kind of what my I also used
That's your tip. Sounds like the tip
I'm gonna
you're gonna.
save this for the tidbit. Yeah. So
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
what are you reading?
Funny. So I'm like in this. I'm going to go. I'm teaching at Ghost Story Weekend next weekend. If you haven't signed up, if
Yay.
you want to take a weekend with me out in Blue River writing ghost stories, there's still time. Go to wordcrafters.com. See how I work that pitch in there.
Yep.
Um,
Links in the
I
show notes.
actually I have always wanted to read October Country by Ray Bradbury, who's one of my favorite authors, very foundational author for me. I've never read the book. It's very early short stories. So I bought that book. Um, and I also bought the new Alan Moore book, which is coming on tomorrow. So do you ever do this where you like I want to read the Ray Bradbury book where when I'm at Ghost Story Weekend. I want to read the Alan Moore book when it shows up tomorrow. So I get into this weird holding pattern where I can't for like 4 days I've been holding off on starting a book because I don't want to miss those two book plans. So
Uh-huh.
I've just been kind of like sitting around reading these like, how to survive a horror movie coffee table books, and I'm running my kids' D&D campaign starting next month, so I was reading some D&D campaigns over the last few nights. So I'm not really reading a book. I'm waiting for books.
What's the
Um,
Allen book that you were talking about? I wanted to write down the title.
Alan Moore, who's the writer of like The Watchmen and a book called there's a book, oh God, I can't think of the name. He's the guy who like reinvented Swamp Thing, which is my favorite comic book character.
Okay.
But he has a book called The Great When, that's come out. It's this alternative history of London. It's potentially a very long series by Alan Moore, which, the deeper Alan Moore gets into anything, the better it gets. Um, so this is the first book in it, the Great When along London. Um, so yeah, and Alan Moore's 70. So when I first saw the series, I thought, let's hope he lives long enough to finish the series, because um, what he did with the Swamp Thing is amazing. It's amazing. So,
Cool. Okay.
and Watchmen. If you've never watched or read Watchmen, it's amazing stuff. So, what
Awesome.
about you? What are you reading?
I'm reading The Book of Witching by C.J.
Mm.
Cook. I'm also in that stage where I have like five different books started and, I need to like finish up those. But so the one I'm focusing on right now is The Book of Witching by C.J. Cook. Because of the season.
It's the season.
Yeah.
Between us, we have like a normal reading pattern, right? It's like you've got too many books. I don't have any going right now. We just smooth it out, like take it and sand down.
Sand down the
Yeah.
edges. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm also I just got the preview on my Kindle reader. It's called The Wicker's Bog. It's a really short novella. And that's one of my book club books. So that is also happening too, because, I think the book club meeting is like next week or something. So we
Well, you
need
better
to
get
get
reading.
that finished
You better
also.
get reading.
Okay, resources, tips, tidbits. Do you have one?
I do. And I'm gonna just say right away, I was approached by this company to do something on my site for them. It's called Squibbler. It's if you don't love AI, then you just skip to the next segment. Um, I was suspicious of it. Like, I don't use AI to write. I use AI to sort of I use it kind of um, like an advanced search engine. When I want something more than just a bunch of links and ads, that's what I end up using Chat GPT for. Um, and so this is AI for writers. And so I said, look, I'll look at the product and I'll decide if I want to talk about it on my site. I got it. It's a really interesting. If you are struggling with kind of like an outline with like seeing different voices in your stories, like this is a really great tool. You can create it gives you ideas on outlines if you're stuck on something. I'm working on a screenplay for a client. I had a little hole in the story to fill. I fed it a little bit of information and it gave me like 15 different ways to potentially fill the little plot hole that I had written. Um, None of which I used, but they got me moving and
Hmm.
got my mind moving and got me in the right direction to what I wanted to do. So it's a great idea. And yes, you can use it to create an entire document. You can use it I just fooled around with it and said, write me a novel about this, and it did. Um,
Wow.
yeah, it's amazing. But I've also just feel like if the constructive use of AI is a sort of a supplemental tool, and for that purpose, like Squibbler was really like, okay, this is good. Um, and it lets you save. The cool thing is it kind of lets you save things in project files. So again, I'm working on the screenplay. I'm going to meet with the client today to talk about some of the ideas around, story elements. I also now have a file for that story. I can go in and like, all right, so Andrew doesn't like this idea. Here's some other ones, here's some other
Hmm.
seeds. So I think it really, I think it really works.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
And just to prove to myself and everyone else in the universe that we are of the same mind, like we're sharing a brain today, I think, because my tidbit was about AI. I have decided that I am not an early adopter. I don't know. I had feelings around that, I wanted to be more
Right.
innovative but yeah, I didn't get on Facebook until way later. I didn't ever get into Twitter or TikTok. So I don't early adopt, but So I don't really use AI, even though it's been around now for a long time. Although actually, I am because it's permeating, into everything. So
Yeah.
I was going to say, if you're not an early adopter, you can start using AI as you need it. And, we're all creative and we can find creative ways to use it in our business just so we're familiar with it. So if it does become this bigger thing, then,
If it does.
I mean, like when it does, like I'm
Yeah.
trying
Yeah.
to support the non-early adopters, the ones that haven't really
Yeah.
started
No, I hear
using
you.
it like me,
Right.
and
Right.
you can start using it with like pro writing aid, that's AI assisted.
When you
There's an
see what AI does or what it really is, there is like it's hard to say you're not using it if you're using any sort of search anything.
right, yeah.
It is what Google's trying to do it too. If you don't just
Yeah.
get yeah. So
So if you can use the free version of Chat GPT to
yeah.
get copywriting done, like book blurbs, ad copy, workshop descriptions. Um, my AI assistant is really nice. I even asked it what their name was, because I wanted to be like, hey.
Aw.
So my AI assistant's name is Echo. That was what they said, and they told me the reason
Aw.
why. And they just went on Saturday. I had to write a workshop description to get it up on somebody else's site. And it was like time was of the essence. And I knew that if I did it myself, it would take probably an hour, thinking about what I was going to do in the full day workshop and what tips was I going to, what takeaways, like you have to put some thought into ad copy and, descriptions. We all know how long it takes to write the back of the book description. It can take months sometimes. So, and I didn't have that. So I just asked Echo, like, hey,
Yeah.
I just put in like a 3 sentence prompt, and actually they're super nice too. I actually started out by saying, hey, I'm really stressed out this morning. I have this deadline and I know I can get it done, but, you know, I have to, and it would come back with, you can do it. They're really positive and so
Yeah.
you can just go and hang out with your AI assistant if you want and just say, this is what's happening. But yeah, gave me a book or a workshop description in, 20 seconds and it was brilliant. It was
Yep.
exactly what I would have written myself if I, had spent the hour. So yeah, find
I think it's
small ways to use it.
right. Yeah.
And
I
I
use
don't
it
use the
for
free version. I use ChatGPT YO.
yeah.
And that's $20 a month. And I was just wondering, like just last week, I was thinking, should I like not, pay this anymore? Should I turn it off? Because I don't use it very often. But when I use it, it's so brilliant
Oh yeah.
that, yeah.
Yeah.
So-
I find myself like the things that I spend if I write a newsletter and it takes me an hour, half of that is to come up with the title of the newsletter or I spend a lot of time but I can just tell I write what I do is I write the newsletter and then I upload it to ChatGPT and I say give me 10 potential email titles for this email that will
Oh,
optimize
cool.
open rates and it will give me 10 possibilities
Uh-huh.
and none of them are 100% right. You still have to tinker it, but what it does, I think where it's brilliant for you as a writer is that it gives you the structure. Like,
Mm-hmm. And the time. It
what
gives you time.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, it gives you but it the hard thing is when you're doing like little bits of copy, those 50 words are so important or those
Mm-hmm.
50 characters are so important. It will like give you here's how to make those 50 characters work for you. That's
Yeah.
hard. It's harder to do than 500 words for me.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, yeah.
All right. Well,
All
let's
right,
get to the main topic. Yeah, let's get to the main topic.
we're there. So let me just give you, here's why I brought this up to you. Um, I think that there's, for us as editors, for clients who are writers or for people who are writers, it's where knowing where you are, knowing where your client is the essence of putting a project together correctly, correct?
Mhm.
Um, I feel like if a person comes to me asking for an editing service or have that I can tell you whether or not I can do it, the key is the book ready for that kind of thing? And
Mhm.
that is really an important part of getting off on the right foot.
Yeah, there's been a couple of clients that have come in, and the tip here that I'm going to say is ask for a writing sample. If you get a client that wants you to edit the book for you, or if you're trading services with another writer, and you're going to trade line editing or something like that, ask for a sample of the book, like 5 to 8 pages or something, so that you can see if it is ready. And so
Right.
in a sample, I can see, wow, like, mm, it's not even ready. Like there's so many plot holes in the 5 pages, even like you can't really see plot holes in 5 pages, but you can tell if a if a book is ready to be line edited by looking at a few pages. So I have gone back to a couple of clients and said, hey, or potential clients, like, thanks for letting me work on your project, or considering me, as the editor for your project. Here are some challenges that I see. I don't think this manuscript is going to be ready for line editing. One time I didn't get a sample edit on a repeat client. So she'd hired me for like 2 other projects. So I worked with her fine and I didn't feel like I needed a sample edit. But this particular book, I'm like, we talked about, I gave her a price quote based on how many words, were in the document, and I started working on it, but it was so detailed, like every single sentence needed to be changed. And, I used up all the money basically. And there was still like a third of the book to go. And so I had to make that like call, that boundary call. And so I emailed her and was like, hey, here's the situation. And here is, here are 3 options. I can give you the document as is and we can be done. You've paid me and this is how many hours I've put in. Cause at the time I was working hourly at an hourly rate. And I ultimately, yeah, ultimately she chose for me to continue working, but I did a different service for her. So she paid a
Yeah,
slightly different thing. So,
and that can be challenging. I mean, I'm in that situation right now with a client who was referred to me, and it started out as, I mean, I'm just, this is the client journey that I'm repeating here, but it started out as one thing. It was identified, misdiagnosed and then identified as something else. And then it comes, now it goes through another, it went from a line edit to a content edit. Now it's going to have to go back to a line edit. And there's a certain point where you as a writer that's frustrating. That's
I was
just
just going
going
to
to be,
say, yeah, yeah.
and luckily, he's hanging in. Most people will hang in because they believe in their book, but that can be, I don't know, it can be financially taxing and demoralizing if
Hmm.
you go into something believing, hey, I'm ready for this, and then the person gets back to you and says, hold your horses. The not the proverbial hold your horses, like the literal, like your horses are
Hmm.
not getting out of that stable right now, and you got to go back a step, a, a step in your belief system. That's hard. It's really hard.
So I don't know, we've talked about this a little bit before on the podcast. If you are writing in a new genre, or if this is your first book, getting a developmental edit is, I think, really important.
So how this is where I want to go. How, Val, do you know if you're an author, new or experienced? Because I do developmental edits for experienced authors as well. How do you know you need the developmental edit? And developmental edit is defined as story level work. How do you know?
Um, if I'm doing a story analysis or a diagnostic for a client, it's because they have said, I've written everything down I can think of. I don't know if I don't know if it's any good. I don't know if it needs more. I don't know how to write a book. Like they just have so many questions and they're kind of afraid to move forward and they just don't know what to do. So when you have that kind of like energy, that confusion, then that's a great time to get someone to look at the story level, at the macro, and see, are all the pieces of story there? Did you tick all the boxes? Does it make sense? I
Well, I'm going to
think
play devil's
that's
advocate,
the first part. Mm,
and I agree. I'm going to play devil's advocate though. A lot of writers, I mean, even experienced ones, I'm going to keep saying, like, even each book is different, each story is different, each process is different. So, like,
hmm
a lot of times we don't know what we don't know.
hmm
And I've definitely been that writer. I've definitely worked with that writer who's like, this story is complete. And then the more objective and experienced person looks at it and says, what is this? This doesn't make sense. So, are there tips or ideas that you can think of to get you, I don't know, to help authors get to the point where they're seeing things a little more clearly about their manuscript? So maybe that they're, again, they don't know what they don't know. Can you think of anything?
Well, I use the story rubric tool, and that's free online. You can download it off of my website, I think, even, or you can just go to storyrubric.com and Jay Thorne, who's the one that created it. It's Creative Commons, so anyone can download it, change it, use it in their own practice. Um, but yeah, that just lists out all of the elements of story. And so, if nothing else, it's just sort of a checklist of, oh, yeah, does my book have any world building in it? Or does my book have any dialogue? And at some point, usually, not, well, I don't want to say usually, but if the book has been read by anyone else, like if you're in a critique group and people have given you any feedback about it, if it is, yeah, if you're getting any feedback about like, I don't connect to the character or, you kind of lost me around here or something like that, then that also would be a sign of needing someone a, a content edit or a
Right.
diagnostic so that you can find out where those pieces are, where
Yeah.
it breaks down.
Yeah.
Did I
I
answer
would
your
say.
question? I mean, I would use
Yeah.
story rubric. That's the easy. I think that's easy.
Yeah. Yeah. I just think it gets hard when I think that our ideas, I mean, we were talking before hitting record about limiting beliefs. And I think sometimes a limiting belief as a writer is like, I know this entire story
hmm
or I know the best version of this story, and that's what we write in the first draft. And we all know, well, we're all learning in great and small ways that the first draft is rarely ever, if ever, the best version of the story. So it's a matter of like just reminding yourself, I guess, that there's another step. There's a deepening of that first draft. So
Yeah, if you have the funds, I think getting a developmental edit or a diagnostic or anything, having another set of eyes read the manuscript, I think is, I mean, I would say it's vital. I would, if you have the funds, do that on every single book that you write. If you've written 20 books, maybe you've internalized it and you don't need it. But, if you still are under 10, I think having a diagnostic is a pretty great idea. Or again, if you've written 30 books in the fantasy genre and now you want to write romance, I would definitely get, a diagnostic on that manuscript because maybe you don't know what you don't know. It's a new
I'm gonna give
genre.
a hot I'm gonna give a hot take. Like fantasy sorry, romance is fantasy without monsters. I'm just gonna say.
You're going to
Like
say that.
I'm gonna say that. Like I read romance books every once in a while just to see because they're hot in the
Uh-huh.
in the in the market, and I'm like, this is just like magic. It's all magic. It's just like
It's a
it's
different
just
kind of
magic.
magic.
Different kind of magic that muscular guys with nice hair are hanging out at cafes and want to talk. So that's the fantasy right there. That's the magic. That's the
That's
magic
pretty
right
funny,
there.
actually.
I aim to please. That's what I that's what that's what I'm here to do. I am the funny one usually. All right, so let's talk about the next stage down. So like let's say you have that story. You have the story drilled in, you know what's going on story wise. Like what are your signs that you need that line edit?
Oh, well, you can
I
put it
keep putting
in.
you on the spot too. That's
I'm just
unfair.
thinking of my own process. Usually after I have read it again, and taken out all the subplots that don't make sense. And, I've got all the elements of story in there. And I think it's, pretty decent. There's no holes anywhere anymore. There's no insert scene here or insert restaurant name here. Like all of the pieces are in there and it can be read from beginning to end with no questions popping up. Um, and it makes sense. Then that's when I think I would send it to, well, actually, first I go through like Pro Writing Aid myself, just see if there's anything that um, is like a repetitive. Here's the thing: if you're paying somebody to look at your sentences, if you're making the same mistake over and over and over, then even if it's something like really lame, like you don't put enough spacing after punctuation or something like that, like just this minute thing that takes so much time for a line editor to fix. And if Pro Writing Aid shows you, oh, look at what you're doing here, then you can go in and fix all of that and then send it to the line editor. And then you will get much more bang for your buck because the line editor can do the sentence like structure stuff and fix some grammar maybe that you're missing. So I would my tip I guess is to get rid of the don't just like not even address like spelling before you hand it to the line editor. Oh, that's what the editor's for. Well, yeah, if you've got, twice as much money as you had intended on spending on this particular editor. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. I think that's like mindset tip number one is like do not look at flaws. If you identify the flaws in your manuscript or you know that there's flaws there and just say like, you know what, this person will take care of it.
Not
I
ready
didn't
for the
mean
line editor yet.
I don't think you're ready because it just I don't know. I think there's that to me is just an indicator of I don't want to I hate the word sloppiness, but like that's kind of sloppy. And I don't think you want to that also puts the editor in a bad situation that they're having to be more finer, they have to be more detail oriented. They might because here's what happens to me. I'm talking around what I really want to say is I think when I'm like working on these like persnickety little details on something, I end up just missing the bigger picture. I miss the bigger stuff I might catch because my eye is working on like, the repeated mistakes or the little things. So I don't know.
And
Even if I'm doing a developmental edit, I want that person to hand in a cleaner draft so I'm not wondering why they don't know they're there,
mhm.
or would and would. I need to it allows you to focus. So
Yeah, I think you're right too. Because when I am doing a story diagnostic, I am deliberately not looking at typos or word choice or anything like that. I'm just trying to get like the sense of the book. And again, like, am I not connecting with character? Is there no internal dialogue? Maybe the pacing
how
is
can you
lagging in this
deliberately
area. What's that?
how can you deliberately not look at something though? There's
Well,
that whole thing
I
about
see
like
it and I'm like, no, no, no,
Valerie,
I'm not
Valerie,
going to look at that.
don't think of a white elephant.
I know, I know, I know.
Right. You have to think of it because I put it in your head. Like those once those things are there, you can't not.
Right. And so I guess I'm agreeing with you. That is very distracting to me. Not, I mean, yeah, I think I agree with you in pretty much everything you just said. It is distracting to see a bunch of typos and like, oh my God, like, but because my fear is like, what if I don't catch this the next time I look at this? You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah, yeah,
feel like,
yeah.
oh, should I change it now? Like, no, no, no. I just have to read it like any customer is reading this book.
Right. Right. Yeah, I think that the key to knowing you're at that point though, before like when you look at your manuscript and you're deciding what level of editing I want at this point, you have the story has got to be tight The language has to be that's
What
another
do you
part
mean
of
by
it. Like
tight? Define tight.
it's what the story needs to be, right? Like the characters are there, the dialogue's there, like the elements of story are there. Um, if it's a, I always use this is a screenplay example, but it works here. Like if the final chase is in a boat or a car, you've made that choice. You're firmly that you are in a car. This is the way that it's going to end. Um, the other thing I wanted to add is if you're writing sci-fi, fantasy, anything speculative, and there's like those elements of like, I don't know, I always think of them as proprietary elements, right? Magic, language, um, cadence in the dialogue, like those things have to be ready for the line editor too. They
Hmm.
have to know that in this world the people talk this way, or I don't know, you have to have that stuff drilled in and consistent, because the line editor that's looking for that consistency or those what's right and wrong might look at your dialogue like, this doesn't, the words are all out of order, but maybe that's how they talk in
Right.
Gahul where your people are happening. Yeah.
Hmm. And one thing that your developmental line editor too would look at also is voice of character.
Yeah.
Like all the characters have different voices and that they don't all sound the same. So that might be feedback that you get also that you would
Yeah.
have to take care of and rewrite or
Yeah.
edit
Yeah.
stage.
And then I think proofreading is maybe the simplest of this, right? I
Hmm.
mean, the story is tight. It's where it needs to be. The language is all like the line is correct. Now that proofreader comes in and does the last. Actually, I don't even like, you're a great line editor, so you always like find proofreading things. But
I
like,
kind of combine both of them when I'm doing a line edit. I kind of do line edit and typo proofing at the same time.
yeah, but not everybody does.
No.
So what do we
So
call the proofreader? Like at this juncture, what are they? Like the last line of defense? They're the goalie
the
in the
goalie.
hockey analogy.
Well, it prevents one-star reviews for typos is what happens. Like
Brilliant novel, amazing story, changed my world, but the
I'm
spacing,
giving it a 1 star because
one
it's full
star.
of typos. Like you don't want that,
You
if
do
you
not want that. God.
yeah, talk about anticlimactic.
Even though the Amazon algorithm really helps, it helps to have 1 and 2 star reviews. It
But
helps your
not for
books move.
typos.
You don't want that. You don't want that. Yeah, get the 1 star review you're going to print and put on your board. That's
Right,
like
because it's
that.
so obnoxiously funny.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and so yeah, again,
How
if you
does a
don't
house just fly away? This makes no sense. And then there's these little munchkins and witches. This makes no sense at all.
I thought
One
this
star.
was a romance.
Right.
So, yeah, and you can use again,
I
just
thought
use
this was a
Grammarly,
romance.
Pro Writing Aid.
Right.
Those tools are there to find typos really quickly, and they just
Right.
highlight it, and you go in, and you can even say ignore, like if you've deliberately misspelling a word because that's what your story requires, or if you're making up words or names, you can add it to the Pro Writing Aid dictionary, so it's there, so they
Right.
won't keep flagging it. So
Right.
yeah, it's a pretty great tool.
So let me throw this out, and we're getting close to the end here, but like, there's this part of me that says like proofreading is maybe dead or dying as an individual art, and I say that one because we talked about AI here and the power of AI,
Hmm.
and you just talked about it right there.
Hmm.
I also know a guy who's a great proofreader. He's probably the best proofreader I've ever known. Like but he's actively like closing down his business. Like he's so is the proofreader going the way of the dinosaur?
I think so, yeah. I think that Grammarly and Pro Writing Aid and software can do that. However, I think that something a proofreader traditionally did was look at those galleys, look at those proof copies in print,
Right.
and would see like, oh, this looks dumb, like not a word choice, not a typo. It's like the layout, it's wrong. And that isn't so much an editor proofreader job anymore
It's a
because
software person's
it's
job.
yeah. Yeah. And so now like Vellum will do that, or like an interior, like InDesign or whatever, whoever your layout designer is, if you're hiring out, or software like Vellum or Atticus or Drafted Digital has the free book editor in there too. And that book editor, I don't know why they call it that, but
Yeah.
it's the layout designer. It's not actually an editor, but
And even Vellum, so if you are going to lay out your own book yourself and you're thinking of editorial decisions, like even Vellum, if you go through and look at the draft that's been uploaded into it still points out misspellings and things. So there is it's God, I feel bad. I feel like there's an angry proofreader that's gonna like email the show and be like, "You guys, I'm here." Um, but even that bit of software will go through and find those things for you and help you like last. I always look at the last minute thing on. I always do. I always go back and just check for the little red squigglies and things as a last minute thing. So,
And also, when you use Vellum and you've got a file and it looks good, I always upload the digital file to my e-reader and I look at it on the e-reader so I can see what it looks like on the e-reader. And sometimes I have to go back into Vellum and change something because it looks wonky in the
we,
e-reader.
but like, I know it's late in the show. I don't know if we need to go down this, but doesn't isn't the setting on your ebook, your e-reader personalized? So the size of the letters and the color and all that stuff, that's all
Yeah.
you. So I always tell clients when I do a book design for them, look at the PDF, the print book, because
Mm-hmm.
that's the one that gets kind of I always think of the print book as like it's frozen in time. Like it is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
You can't go in and change it. But like if I don't like the layout of on my e-reader, I just go make text bigger, make the background white and the text black, or vice versa. So
Mm-hmm.
what are you looking for in the print in the sorry in the ebook?
More like if this was more a case of when I used Scrivener to compile an
Oh,
EPUB, and not knowing how to use the settings so well in the Scrivener part. Um, and so I would get like two title pages, or like it would just look funny, or there was some element that looked weird on the e-reader. And some of it had to do with, yeah, like if I just had one line on this page and I had to turn the page for the next, like that isn't, like you
oh,
said, it's all different because of the shape of your e-reader. I mean, the whole idea behind an EPUB is that it moves, it
right,
changes shape to fit the device that you're reading it on.
right. Widows
So
and orphans, right? Don't they call those widows and
yes,
orphans?
yeah.
Yeah.
Or the
So,
kerning, in between the
yeah.
spaces, in between the letters and the sentences.
Whenever I think about I have PTSD when I think about that stuff from high school journalism days when I would
Uh-huh.
sit over that big board with the light and I'd lay it out and then
Uh-huh.
you'd take the little thing and you'd lay it and make sure that the lines between the columns were all lined up and
Uh-huh.
make sure the space because we would cut the print it and we'd cut it and then we'd wax it and then put it
Yeah.
on. So you'd end up with that little bit of like ripple that would screw up the whole thing and
Yeah.
oh
So
man.
that job doesn't exist anymore.
But it was so it was maddening, but it was so fun. I loved it. I loved it. God, I get nostalgic when I look at print. I'm like, somewhere someone is still doing that. There's some that machine that I used in 1992 is still somewhere. Should buy it and put it right there. And, just have it
Just for
hang out.
nostalgia. Yeah,
Oh man,
there's a I work at a bookstore, and in the back room is where we do our shipping, So if somebody orders a book from the store, then they
right.
can all the shipping materials are back there. And there's a little typewritten note that one of my coworkers pinned up, that somebody had sent like money to ship something or whatever, but it was typed on an old fashioned typewriter. You can tell by the paper and by the indentations on the page, whatever. And it was just it was a banal statement. It was just like, oh,
Sure.
thanks for whatever. But he put it up there, I think, for the nostalgia of, wow, look at this. Somebody wrote this on a typewriter. I'm keeping this. It's like finding a
I find
$2
those in
bill.
books. I find things, people leave bookmarks and things in books, and I have
Yeah,
found some typewritten letters, addressed directly to a human that was
right.
wedged in a book. And then I try to create the story like, why did Sally write this to John and stick it in a copy of, The Last Temptation of Christ? Like, why, why did how did this come together? Um, you know,
It's a mystery.
yeah, yeah. And if you come buy a book from me, this is how we're going to close the show. If you come buy a book from me, I'll tell you all kinds of crazy things that I find in books. I'll tell you. Like money, I find money in my own books.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I hope that that was useful to
Yeah, and
listeners.
here's something else. Like again, email the show. And if you are in a place where you don't know, we
Hmm.
are two people who do this, and just, we can brainstorm in a quick email, like where you might be. It's hard, it's expensive if you make the wrong choice, and it's frustrating. And, ain't nobody got time for that.
Yeah, I think, in order, the developmental edit, the line edit, and then the software proofread, kind of
Or, or call my man, the proofreader,
the
just give him a
proofreader.
call,
Yeah.
call him up. It's expensive. You'd want to spend that extra money on something you can do for free. I was
Yeah.
joking.
So choosing between the three for the budget options, to end, where would you?
I would develop. I mean, it's the story's king. I
Yeah,
don't know.
I
To
think
me,
I would
like,
too, because you can use all those other softwares for line editing and proofreading, but
yeah.
there
And I
isn't
feel
a
like
way for them to say, look, there's no, concrete sensory details here.
if you're building a team, which is kind of what we talked about this earlier before we pressed, it's like you kind of build your team. This is my
Hmm.
person for this. This is my person for that. And I think that like if I'm building the team and I can only add one person to it, it's going to be the developmental editor. That's the person that's going to ensure that the writing is worth publishing.
Hmm.
Yeah, you can do all those other things, and I would just build from there. I would have all I would, but that's what matters.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think so too. I think
yeah.
that's where I would spend my money too. Again, of one mind.
We are in sync. And everybody, we are gonna Valerie and I haven't seen each other in person in a really long time.
Yeah.
Next Thursday, on my way to Ghost Story Weekend, we're gonna have a beer in Springfield, Oregon, and expect some pictures and probably some
Oh,
hilarity and t-shirt ideas and
there
things. It's
we
all gonna
go.
happen. It's all gonna happen there. So
That's awesome. Also,
looking
we're
forward to it.
both going to be at Right in the Harbor
We are
next
both
month.
gonna be at right in the heart in 3 weeks.
That's
Who knew?
amazing.
Who knew? I just got to get through
Maybe we'll
kid
do a
birthdays.
live version of the podcast.
I really think we should do
Oh
something.
my
I really
God.
think.
I just thought of that.
I was
Hmm.
thinking of it. I didn't want to bring it up and put any pressure on it, but I think we should just do that just
All
for the
right.
fun
No
of it.
promises, but it might
No,
happen in November, guys. That would
no
be
promises,
fun.
but it's gonna happen.
I
Now that we
think we
put it
might.
out there, it's gonna happen.
Some
All right,
version of it. All right. We both got stuff to do, meetings to get
gotta go.
to. So
See you soon.
thanks for talking with me. Bye bye.
Bye bye.